And so did Thomas Curnow bravely defy the outlaws and their enablers and save all the people on the police special train, which ushered in the battle or siege of Glenrowan. If you want the condensed version of this campaign, here it is.
Fuck you, asshole.
Fuck you, asshole.
Or if you want a more detailed version, the train's arrival interrupted Ned while he was giving a blood-curdlingly menacing speech.
I tell you what, any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up to die is a bum.
Train!
Then Ned and Joe in full armour mounted horses and scouted down to the railway tracks. That must have been splendidly spooky. Why does no one ever put it in the movies? What Ned saw on that recon was stark proof that he had been duped by Curnow. Imagine the moment of clarity Ned must have had. With easy victory now out of reach, Ned did the sensible thing and cut his losses, evacuating his tiny force from... Nah, just pulling your tit. He offered battle against a force of unknown size.
This is a place to fight. This way our back is protected.
What are you talking about? Let's get out of here. Come on, there's nobody here.
Guards, get out here and fight!
What with all that effort with making armour and sabotaging rails and so on, he was now so heavily invested in going forth into battle that he couldn't bear just to let it go and do it some other time. Ned now proceeded to get his brother killed by suicide. Police numbers were a complete unknown quantity, yet Ned still led his tiny force out to offer battle. He must have had the charisma of a cult leader to make men do this. They were lucky that police numbers were so small. Out there now you see the entire police force at the start of the battle, actual photos of them. Let's start with the Victorian contingent. They were 9 strong, 6 constables, 1 senior constable, 1 superintendent, 1 deputised civilian, and you might like to count the 1 journalist who they did give a revolver to make it a total of 10 guns that the Kelly gang had to face. So 9 strong, of whom 2 got wounded. Now let's consider the Queensland contingent, almost half the total force, mostly Aboriginal trackers, and I have found it fiendishly difficult to match the almost identical faces in this original photo with the often completely contradictory captions put on photos of them by even the historians. If you think I'm just being lazy about this, then here's the work of 3 respected Kelly historians, McMenemy, Dufty and Keezer, laid out side by side, showing their mismatching name tags in sharp relief. So I've taken definite face shots and planted them crudely over the top of this, and you can see what rewards they got. Generally that was £50 per man, but yeah, well, Victorian age men understood that rank has its privileges. Present day sensitivities about Aborigines make people feel obliged to disparage these men, and largely due to them all being veterans of a recent conflict with a tribe near Cooktown, where it's made out that they massacred women and children. They did no such thing. A careful reading of the records shows that women and children were just there, and that the 28 they killed were all men. The reason I can't figure out which way to run this photo is that for all I know they might have been left-handed. They're certainly wearing their ammunition pouches on the left. In recent times, activists who just happened to be in line to get some money had claimed that these men were short-changed, not paid their reward money. The fact that those people just happened to be trying to get $80 million should tell us all we need to know about that. I have a low opinion of oral history at any point. It doesn't get better just for being Aboriginal. And so the police were 15 strong, while the Kelly gang were too strong and too weak. Yet Ned still led them forth into battle, convinced of the invincibility afforded by the armour, as one witness attested. They believed the police could do them no harm. When the escaped hostage Constable Bracken found the police, they were here. He told them that the Kellys were right there.
Mr. Hare, the Kellys
Imagine how it felt to hear that news after 20 months of frustrating failures to find them in the bush.
Let's have 'em.
But they had to run a convoluted course to get there because of this fence, shown in yellow. And there was also a long drain or dried up creek with a crude bridge here and there, which would house the Queensland contingent throughout the coming battle. Look, now that we're hurtling headlong into battle, let's get a map worthy of the occasion. And who am I to argue with the classics? Let's go straight for Carrington's eyewitness sketch, sketched on the spot. Hang on. Didn't we see this looking rather different when the witness that doesn't lie, the photographs, were cross-examined? So let's pull up the star witness, and would you call that the same angle? All right. The Queensland Police trench lines, that must be shown accurately, right? Blue is the trench, yellow is the fence beyond it. So back to Carrington's sketch, let's check it out. There's the trench, good. So this fence, it wasn't there, was it? Where is it? Missing from the sketch too. All right, what about the Fettlers' tents? Surely Carrington got the angle to view them to the furthest western tent, right? No. Something is just crashingly wrong with this classic sketch map. And as always, the Jaguar Knight names the elephant in the room. Let's just rearrange it and make it suitable for us. Now I'm happy. We at last have a worthy battlefield for Kelly versus Hare, and how splendidly the original Warcraft this classic map feels. And so the unified trains chugged to a halt in Glenrowan, population about 100. All 15 men disembarked, looked around for clues, started bringing horses out, when suddenly escaped hostage Constable Bracken turned up.
Mr. Hare, the Kellys are in the hotel.
Come on, lads. Let's have 'em.
And that inveterate action man, Francis Hare, led the charge to go get the bastards at long last. But half of the force didn't notice, so while he raced away to that pub with 4 Victorians and some Queenslanders, others still milled around in confusion at the train station. Hare's men were itching to rush the pub directly, but they couldn't because of this fence and this ditch in the way. So they had to run broadside on to the pub and go through a metal turnstile gate which opened towards them, if anyone cares. By now you may have noticed the Kelly gang gathering in a line on the hotel veranda in full armour, and Ned striding out ahead of them. And as Hare leads his force raggedly toward them, let us pause to take it all in. All their grand dreams about strategic victory over the state, all their puffed-up pretensions about being a new Manchu army, have dwindled all the way to this pathetic rump marching forth into battle on the veranda of a pub. I did once meet a tool going forth into battle on the veranda of a pub, my local to be exact. The drunken fuckwit was shaping up to the security guard. I walked up and shoved him over onto his back. He flailed around like a cockroach, flipped onto his back. Then the police turned up and swept him up into the pooper scooper van. That was the end of it. Suddenly, Ned does the exact thing that got him into all this trouble in the first place. He shoots a policeman in the wrist. By some accounts, Hare then implored Ned to surrender in the Queen's name. Other witnesses don't mention any conversation, just scrambling into firing positions. The police played it safety first. They knew they were in a position where they were terribly vulnerable, just didn't know that the gang were wearing armour that stopped them aiming properly. And at last the other police rushed to the sound of the guns. To roughly these shooting positions as Hare, you see him in the middle picture, went to the train to get first aid from a journalist. And a 15-minute gun battle erupted, in which all that saved the gang from extinction was the gun smoke. And if you want to go there today, here's the address to go to. But other factors conspired to give the Kellys the worst of it. With so much gun smoke, the Kellys could only aim for the muzzle flashes, not the man, yet muzzle flashes are but fleeting and located actually away from the man himself. Whereas the traps just had to aim for the front of the building, and you'd have to try to miss that even in all this smoke haze. The gang physically took up about a quarter of the frontage of the hotel, and about 1/3 of each man was fully exposed without armour, including his arms in front of the armour holding the gun. So when aiming generally at this target area, 1 in 4 shots will find a body, divided further to 1 in 8 shots for the space above their heads to take into account, then to 1 in 24 shots will find the unprotected third of a body. Therefore the gang must lose a battle of attrition, and of about 100 shots the traps fired in this first brush, 3 hit the gang in the unprotected flesh. The bullet went through both Ned's upper arm and lower arm, smashing bone and rendering his left arm useless. Imagine a battle where both opposing commanders are severely wounded in the left arm at the start, and apologies, it's the only thing that's good in the 1970 movie. Then Joe Byrne got wounded. Ned's trusted lieutenant got a severe calf wound now that stopped him from standing up unaided. Indeed, it may have actually broken his lower leg. Ned had been shouting, "You could fire away for 6 months and not hurt us," but Constable Gascoigne became his travel agent back to the real world by planting a heavy bullet between his toes and right through to the heel. It is amazing how little it bothered him. He was one hardcore badass. But that's already 2 men who can forget about riding a horse. While they attracted police fire into the hotel, they made no effort to tell the police that they had 30 hostages in there. Hostage takers who deliberately get their hostages killed are thankfully rare, but never forget, that's what sort of men the gang were. With their wounds piling on and no obvious way to hit back at the police, Ned made a rare smart decision.
Around the back! Go on! Go on!
He ordered the retreat back indoors. But imagine how pissed off the traps must have been that they'd failed to plant even one of them in a 15-minute gun battle. The reason was, in the shadows, the armour had remained a secret weapon. But even when the shooters don't know there's armour, they can still fluke hits on unarmoured parts anyway, a problem which would persist while the gang were indoors, out of line of sight. The armour was genuinely bulletproof and had saved their lives. But the armour saved the policemen's lives too. Caught out in the open with no cover, they should have been slaughtered with no survivors. Well, to explain it, I can't improve on this exercise in Outlawed, the Real Ned Kelly, documentary by the Gay BC.
Turn around.
Virtually an impossibility. I can't even see the sights properly.
So you think that'd be fairly impractical?
Very impractical.
Battle casualty Superintendent Hare was in no two minds about it. Their lives had been saved by the gang having that damned armour and being unable to aim properly at them. Otherwise, none of us would have escaped being shot. Constable Gascoigne was a marksman, and I would guess that all Ned's movements took him momentarily out of the smoke cover so that Gascoigne could aim well, and that brings us to what was truly stupid about Ned's strategy of going into battle. Rapid advances in firearms had lately made them as accurate as they are now 140 years later, and warfare transformed as standing up to full height made a soldier the easy target he had never been in the centuries of hit-and-miss smoothbores. Guns were almost universal, and as Europeans expanded their empires throughout the world, they were usually up against guns, not just spears like in all the myths. Marching in the open was now a prescription for slaughter. Even in traditionalist martial cultures, time-honoured inhibitions against utilitarian, impersonal, distant killing broke down before the allure of winning at any cost. Even lying down was asking to cop an aimed shot by 1880. The war you are seeing here was a rare, complete British defeat, which started at the time Ned was executed in 1880. And coinciding with the Cali outbreak, here is a war in South America where the battlefield was dominated by accurate and swiftly reloaded rifle fire, such that any man stepping into the open was a dead duck. Yet, at this juncture in history, Ned led his men forth into battle in the open, so in conclusion, 1. All they had to do was stand inside and fire out the windows, and the police would have been wiped out in a lopsided victory. But Ned knew better. 2. Once the gun battle developed, gunsmoke cover was sure to work against the gang. 3. The hostages could have been major leverage, but Ned failed dismally to use this factor. 4. Attempting to murder men in the most cowardly way, derailment, instills in them an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. And 5. Don't attempt an uprising if you lack the numbers for a halfway decent gangbang. In an age of accurate firearms, this was genuinely stupid.